Hello, I'm Mary Lee LaBay, and I'm the founder of Integrative Healing Arts Academy. And I'm here today with Graham Robinson, who has graduated from my past life, my hypnotherapy and past life training. And he's got an interesting topic. So I'm going to have Graham introduce himself and the topic for today. What are we going to talk about?
Hi, Mary. Mary Lee, thank you. Yes, as you said, I graduated from your class. And as I've mentioned before, one of the reasons I was attracted to the work you do is because of the past life work. And although there is much more that you do, I know. And I'm thinking one day we should dive into your life and look at where you started and what yes, what you did. But for today, I'd like to ask you. Do you find a lot of people or most people come to you to ask to look at their past lives to determine their purpose in life? Because we all feel we should have a purpose, we should do something, or most of us do. Is that what people come looking for?
Um, a lot of people come looking for their purpose, or they come with symptoms that really point to the fact that they don't know their purpose, or they have not connected with it and are moving in that direction. A lot of times they don't ask for that. They're just telling me about all the things that are wrong, or not, that are misfiring, I guess, in their life. And then we talk about purpose, and then they kind of light up, and it's like, yeah, I have no idea. I really feel lost. So they don't always know that up front, but it is revealed in the conversation. Yeah.
So my question is, how do you find purpose for somebody in past lives? What do you look for to determine that?
So I have kind of a formula to help people find their purpose, and there's some homework that they do that kind of goes along with it. But in our sessions, we are going to look at several past lives, and so when they're going into trance and we're preparing to go into the past life, I'm telling their subconscious mind that I want the subconscious mind to reveal those past lives that where they were expressing their purpose, or would give some detail that would hint towards that. And sometimes, the subconscious mind behaves really well, and it will take us right to those lifetimes. And sometimes those lifetimes will show the person, actively engaged in their purpose. And I've also had clients where they go to past lives where they were prevented from doing their purpose for whatever cultural reasons there were, um, or educational, or, life circumstances. And showed their frustration around that. So that, you know, taken all together, we can start finding those clues and those similarities that point towards that purpose.
So, taking your point about somebody may not serve their purpose in a life because something else stops. So, for example, say you went back several hundred years and a woman was really wanted to be a teacher, wanted to teach in something, but culturally she wasn't able to do anything. Is that the sort of thing that you might see in that past life?
Right. So, yeah, they have a dream, they have that purpose or that yearning to accomplish a certain thing, um, or move their purpose along in a certain direction. But either, they were, in a culture where they were, you know, had an arranged marriage, and that partner, oftentimes it's the woman who's frustrated in the older cultures because they didn't have the freedoms to do, the things that many of us do now. Um, and so maybe they were married and that spouse kept them from actively, pursuing a purpose, or culturally, a woman, wasn't allowed to have a particular job, or maybe they were healers, right? Oftentimes, we had the witch burnings, right? So people were really attracted to foraging for herbs and berries and things, and making tinctures and doing healing using natural substances. And, the culture didn't stand for that. And so they were burned or drowned or excommunicated from their community. So sometimes those kinds of things come up. Um, but we can still see what it was that was the passion. What
Intention.
what was the intention? What was it that they were aiming for?
The human race is really nice towards each other, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
do you do you find that, or is the purpose always the same? So when you go back, the purpose is continues through each life, or can that purpose be fulfilled in one life, and therefore there's a new purpose in another?
Well, there's a difference between a soul purpose and a lifetime purpose.
Okay.
So a soul purpose will traverse maybe thousands of years, right? Many, many lifetimes. It may be the same one that was instilled in you, or that was appropriate for you at the inception of your life, like at the beginning of time and space. As you were created, you have a very individual imprint with a particular purpose. Um, Now, that would be a soul purpose. And over many millennium, you can change that. You can say, okay, I'm done being a warrior, for thousands of years. Now I want to be a healer, or something like that, where there's a change, and then you're set on that path for many, many lifetimes to come. Now, in an individual lifetime, maybe you're a warrior. So you say, okay, I'm a warrior, and in this lifetime, I'm going to be, a soldier, or another lifetime, you're going to be a police officer, or, a first responder, some kind of hero position where you're standing up and fighting for a particular thing. The warrior itself would not be the purpose, but what is it they're fighting for, right?
Yeah.
Um, but in a given lifetime, that may look, that there may be a more finite goal. So in a lifetime as a warrior in the Roman times, at the turn of the first century, would look different from being a warrior maybe in modern America. um, or it would just have different faces. So
Yeah.
then in this lifetime, they may be fighting for a particular freedom, or to uphold the freedoms we have, as opposed to just conquering more land for the king, that sort of thing.
So really, yes, it's cause and effect. What is causing them to do or go to war, and the effect of that. Um, I mean, we often talk about purpose, don't we? And you hear many conversations about wanting to maybe bring something into the world and so forth. What if our purpose in previous lives, when you go back and look for somebody, has actually been quite bad? If we've done things that are quite atrocious, do and can we change that in this life? If a person sees themselves in past lives doing something consistently that is bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've probably all done things we regret, or positioned ourselves and then found ourselves on the wrong side of the fight, right? On the wrong side of the line, moral line. We have to be very careful, because when we're going into past lives, we are viewing it from our 21st century perspective, right? And so we have a view, and then we look at what we did in this other lifetime, And it's very easy to judge that from our perspective rather than from the position of who they were and the circumstances of what was happening in that lifetime. So that's one barrier that we have to cross and resolve, that we need to see it from that perspective. But there's lessons to learn in that. So I think your question is if you have a tendency towards negative behavior, which
Yeah.
I guess you have to define that, right? So first of all, I have to say that people who are still of that mind where they want to harm other people, they're still of that mind of being more destructive. They're not typically the people that are going to come into our offices as hypnotherapists and past life regressionists because they don't feel maybe that there's something to fix, right? So what we might call the evil people are just going to go do their thing because they think they're okay and they're justified in their behavior. It's the good people that come in, feeling guilty or regretful, remorseful, and wanting to make those changes. So it means that there's already something inside of their soul, inside of their character that says, okay, I have done some bad things, but I don't want to be that person. And so then, of course, we'll do therapy and we can absolutely change the trajectory of where they're going in the future. And we can also change a lot of what happened in the past because, as we're aware, there are parallel universes, there are multiple aspects of ourselves. And so we're on one timeline, you know, remembering a certain history and character, but there are infinite numbers of parallels of us where that history is somewhat changed. And so some of the work we do is to move a person from the current trajectory over to another trajectory. So now they're going to be aimed in a different direction. I mean, changing your purpose or even aligning with your purpose more clearly is going to put you in a different aspect field. And so there are steps that we can take that can start to change some of the things that happened in the past. And even viewing those past lives is going to change it.
Can you, if you make a change either in past life or in this life, does that change other lives? So, so what you do, well, let's take in this life to begin with. If you make a change here because they're looking for purpose and you get them on the right path because they are heading out in another direction, does that have an impact on past lives, even though they've been lived at all?
It can. So it depends on if aligning with their purpose now was already on this timeline in this aspect field. It was just a matter, they were marching forward and this moment of revelation was already on the timeline. Then a lot of the past will not change. They'll just be more aware and they'll progress faster. However, if it wasn't, if they're like they were never going to find their purpose in this lifetime, but they come to me for weight loss or they want to quit smoking, which are really not my demographic. But let's say, they're trying to, organize some kind of conflict, inner conflict, and they're trying to resolve something. And in that work that we're doing, I recognize, for instance, that, a lot of this conflict comes from them not being on that line of moving towards their purpose. And then we do that work. What we're doing is we are shifting them to a new future, a future that was not on the original timeline. And as we shift them over, they're on a line, so now that their timeline is new and fresh, right? But it means that this line goes back to a different past as well. Most of the time, we don't notice a real significant change in the past, because if we didn't know about those past lives, we don't know that they're different, right? We, now we go explore those past lives, and those are the ones that have always been there. But I've done a lot of work, particularly on myself, but on other people, where we did go into those past lives. Then we did some really significant work in this life, and then we go visit those past lives again, and they have changed. It's like, oh, I wasn't that character. I didn't do that. And that's how we can clear karma. That's how we can, resolve some of these behaviors from the past.
Fascinating, isn't it? The way it's linked together and it carries over. Um, you mentioned earlier that if you're doing a past life with somebody and for purpose, and you ask them to go back to other lives where there is purpose, have you found somebody where you just couldn't find a purpose, where there was no purpose?
Those people exist. And a lot of it has to do more with how they have learned and evolved and devolved over the many lifetimes. So they were created with a purpose, but if they have not expressed it for 1,000 years, if they have not been doing anything with their consciousness, with their soul, with their evolution, with, progressing themselves forward and aligning with that purpose, over time, a lot of that just fades. And so, but it doesn't stop you from determining and just saying, okay, I'm going to name my purpose and I'm going to run after that in that direction with my hair on fire. I'm going to study and I'm going to grow and I'm going to behave in a certain way. You can develop that, and that becomes your purpose. And then that would shift you into a place where there is a purpose. Yes.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The things that we are linked to, and again, with all of the past life work, we could talk for hours, and there are a lot of questions, and I hopefully will cover those over more sessions. But next time, though, we're going to look at a more, I guess, a more traditional method of therapy, parts therapy, what it is and why it works. So that should be quite fascinating. And of course, it's a major part of the work that happens in hypnotherapy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the popular protocols to apply in the here and now, but we can also apply parts therapy. Occasionally, we can do that within past lives too. So yeah, we'll have a fascinating conversation and with some more practical tools.
Thank you, Mary Lee.
Well, thank you, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.